Well, voters will go to the polls on the 3rd of May with the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese poised to call the election tomorrow. It paves the way for a 5-week campaign to be dominated by competing cost of living and power plans. The confirmation came just an hour ahead of the opposition leader's budget reply speech. Tonight, Peter Dutton has promised to force gas giants to keep some of the resource on shore as he seeks to convince Australians that a coalition government could bring down energy prices. Well, for more, we are joined by political reporter Isobel Roe at Parliament House. Isobel, good evening. Now, Peter Dutton has made a number of announcements. Can you take us through what he's had to say today?
He has, and by far the biggest or most significant and the newest one of those has been this announcement about gas supply. So Peter Dutton has said if he did win government, he would ensure that there is more gas supply kept in Australia, gas that would otherwise, he says, be exported. He's promised to set up an East Coast gas reservation, and he says he would secure an additional 10 to 20% of the East Coast gas demand through that process. Now, he says this would bring down prices. Specifically, he says it would drive wholesale domestic prices of gas from $14 per gigajoule to under $10. Here is a bit of him explaining that earlier.
This plan will prioritise domestic gas supply, address shortfalls and reduce energy prices for Australians. This is all about ensuring Australian gas is for Australians. Yeah. We will immediately introduce an East Coast gas reservation. Yeah. This will require a proportion between 50 to 100 petajoules of spot cargo exports to be delivered to the domestic market. This will secure an additional 10 to 20% of the East Coast demand, gas which would otherwise be exported for use in other markets by consumers in those countries. But our gas needs to be first and foremost for our people. Yeah.
Now, gas is part of the coalition's energy mix. It has previously announced it would introduce nuclear. Peter Dutton didn't mention nuclear too often in his speech. In fact, he only mentioned the word nuclear twice, but he did reiterate that he believes, according to their independent costings, that it would be 44% cheaper than Labor's energy plan. There were a bunch of other policies that Peter Dutton spoke about, things he sort of re-announced or he's announced earlier. One of those is allowing access to $50,000 of superannuation for first home buyers to buy new homes. He says he would cut permanent migration numbers by 25%. That's something he's already spoken about as well. He promised $9 billion for health, including matching Labor's Medicare policy that was announced to increase bulk billing a few weeks ago. And also he reiterated the policy he announced last night of halving the fuel excise to 25%. He said he would do that instead of the tax cuts that Labor had passed last night.
And given we are going into official election campaign mode tomorrow, what has Peter Dutton said about how he would lead the nation?
Well, he really touched on his police officer background and spoke about crime and national security. These are areas that he is familiar in when it comes to campaigning. He said he would like to be a leader like John Howard, the former Prime Minister. He says he was a strong leader. He used the word weak to describe Anthony Albanese and the Labor government. Here is a bit of how Peter Dutton sought to frame himself.
Under Labor, you'll get the same weakness of leadership that has compounded crime and emboldened anti-Semitism on our streets. You'll get a nation that is less safe and less secure. But under the coalition, we will provide the moral and political leadership needed to restore law, order and justice. Yeah. We will establish a dedicated anti-Semitism task force to turn the tide of this scourge of hatred. Every Australian should be equally treated. We will work with states and territories to develop national uniform knife laws. We will toughen bail laws to stop domestic violence offenders. We will again stop the boats, just as we did in 2013, and we will again deport dangerous non-citizen criminals.
Peter Dutton in the House of Representatives not long ago, and Usually after a budget reply and a budget, the leader goes out and sells their new announcements the next day. Some of the wind has been taken out of Peter Dutton's ability to do that because just an hour before this speech, it was confirmed that the Prime Minister will be calling an election tomorrow. So not only will we be hearing from Peter Dutton again in the morning, we will see the Prime Minister hopping in that car and heading to the Governor-General's house.
OK, Isobel Roe in Canberra, thank you so much.